All right. That was a good pop. I don't know if that came through on your guys' end, but it was pretty solid over here.
It came
I
through.
would
Kind of
I would
quiet,
give it a
but
I would
it
give
was
it a
good.
box 5. All right.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Man,
It's about to be
WGI
box 5.
2019 has already gotten here.
Yeah, man, we had our first weekend and decided to bring another guest back on to talk through, I guess, a lot of different things, really. Some topics that have been hitting the social media, anything from some of the articles he's been writing for FloMarching to some of the stuff that's been happening recently. But we brought our good friend Dan Schack back. What's up, Dan?
What's up? What is up?
Is it cold up there in, like, you're in Connecticut, right?
Delaware.
Delaware?
Yeah, we had school canceled yesterday, and then it was today, so it looks like nothing ever happened with the snow. It's pretty weird.
Happens in Louisville or Kentucky all the time. It'll be like
Yeah.
20 one day, get 3-4 inches of snow, be 60 the next day, and it's all gone. But before we get into this, welcome everyone to the Aged Out podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Fantini, and with me as always is
Evan Worrell.
And before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, all of it's just Aged Out Podcast. And like Evan said, today we have guest Dan Schack back on again to talk about all things WGI 2019 and a few other topics we'd like to get his opinion on that have been relevant in the activity recently. So let's just go, Evan.
I guess just because I don't want to talk about this too much, we'll just start out. Like, we had the Dayton Regional, South Carolina hit their stuff. I don't want to talk about scores too much, I guess, per se, because this early in the season, groups are coming out with partial shows. Some are in uniform, some are out of uniform, some do have props, some don't. So it kind of is what it is. But I think one of the things that jumped out at me from looking at some of these recaps were judges using the boxes correctly. In my opinion, specifically, if you were to check out the Southern California for Percussion Arts show that happened, you had like the big boys out there, Broken City, RCC, Dark Sky, and then Vessel in the independent world category. And if you look at the sub captions, I think the judges were pretty spot on with how you use the sheets. Did you check that out any, Dan?
I heard about that. I haven't looked at the sheets. But yeah, I think, it's funny because we all see that and we're like, man, that's like a ballsy move or whatever. But, Omar and whoever else was making that call, it's like, should be judging what's in front of you. And, those boxes have some inherent overlap, but in general, you should be able to put them where they are ranked correctly. And obviously box, in terms of box 1 through 5 or whatever. But yeah, I welcome that. Honestly, I think that's great. And I'm sure people were upset, and I bet other people saw that for what it was. But I mean, every WGI judge I talked to is we judge the show of the night, we judge the show of the night. So that's what. And I think WGI as a circuit is one that is willing to make calls like that. So respect to whoever did that. And, it's all the better for the competitive nature out there. I mean, that's such a hotbed. It's great. There's probably more good groups. There's also POW, we were at that show. But it's pretty wild that there seems like there's competition outside of even the top, 3 or 4 groups now. Just crazy.
Yeah, just to give a little more insight for people who maybe haven't seen it too. Looking across the recaps, if you're looking at the ordinals, specifically in the music caption, the judge, he had Dark Sky winning the show in his caption. He had him third in the content box as far as the arranging what the battery and the front are playing, but he had him first in the performance caption, which usually typically breaks down to execution, clarity, how clean you are. And Broken City and RCC were 1-2 in what I guess some people call the top box, the content box, but they were 3rd and 4th at that show in the performance, which to me makes sense a lot of the time for some of these groups that come out and do riskier stuff that have, I won't say they do have a more challenging book, but say they do. For this example, they probably aren't going to play as clean early on in the year. And I've talked to people about that before in the DCI realms. Like, if people were actually judging on clarity in DCI, Blue Devils probably wouldn't win a show until maybe halfway through the season, because that's just kind of the formula they use. But he looked like he used the boxes like, hey, this group's the cleanest today, so they're getting my top number.
And if you think about it, it's like, okay, so the comp box is dragged in either direction by the achievement box, but really that achievement box should be able to move around much more flexibly than the comp box. Because it's like, if you read a book and you're able, like, if you somehow, even if it's filthy, are able to read the composition, you know, is the composition going to change throughout the season? Of course, but those boxes move flexibly together more than they, I think, are designed to, where it's really like, you know, that comp box is totally dragged by the achievement box. Most DCI is probably more than WGI, but it's like, you know, you should see like, okay, I'm reading the comp and it, you know, I can like procure from it what I can depending on how dirty it is. But, you know, if you think about it, like reading the book, it's literally harder if the group is dirty, right? So they do move together, and it makes sense that they move together in some regard, but I think that I wonder how much they're supposed to or not, you know, and it's something that I think we should get to the heart of, you know, not here, but, you know, collaboratively with the judges, because I think everyone does it differently. So yeah.
If they aren't supposed to move together,
go ahead, Mike.
why even have two sub captions? You know what I mean? Why not just have a music caption and not have two separate boxes? I love the fact that they're actually having the guts to separate the two and say, okay, I know what you're trying to do here. You're just not doing it well enough yet, and this group's doing what they're trying to do better than you. So they're ahead of you in the achievement caption. Whereas I know if you clean up down the road, your stuff's harder, your content's at a higher level, you're going to jump them overall. But right now, they're cleaner than you, and I'm going to put them up, which is exactly how it should be, in my opinion.
Right. Well, if you look at it, the left box, the content box, is like the technically is the objective box, where it's like, it's the subjective box rather, where you're making like a call about the artistry and the depth and the variety of their comp, right? And that's where like you have to make a decision, even if, you know, I guess it's more subjective. You have to like kind of decide which groups are doing better or more or whatever. Okay, but then on the right side, which is like the tick box, it's like that is your like objective side, where it's like you are supposed to read the group as is, however clean they are, right? And I wonder, like, are you supposed to take into account how difficult the book is, and, you know, how that compares to how clean they are? Like, are you supposed to be saying, well, this book has like a lot of space and it's super difficult, so there's some ticks, but it's like so hard that even what they are achieving, it's like I need to give them more points for that. And that's what I think happens a lot of the time, is it's like, wow, the risk is so high that, okay, there's a little bit more like hair or whatever, but what they're attempting to do is like just on that next caliber. So
see, to me, achievement should be black or white. It should be, are you cleaner than the other? If I were judging in an ideal world, and where my opinion mattered in this case, just if you are cleaner than somebody else, I don't care how easy or hard you're playing. Now, having said that, if your content is that much lower than them, you're going to finish that much lower score-wise in that box to where it should even it out. Even if you do put a group playing something really easy above somebody else clarity-wise, their content score should reflect that.
Super higher, yeah. Right.
So the average out, and it should account for that.
I think as a judge, too, like, if I were judging, I would be so hesitant to do that, like just line up my ordinals like 1-1-1, 2-2-2, 3-3-3. Like it'd be kind of silly to think that what, like you were saying, Dan, what is subjective, like what I think is maybe the best is always going to line up with the group playing their book the best. Like those two things just are not always going to correlate. And I think that to always, like if you look down an ordinal sheet and you just see a judge like everything's the same, 1-1-1, 2-2-2, 3-3-3, 4-4-4, you're just like, man, like really?
Cop out.
You mean the last 3 nights of DCI?
Basically. Basically. But anyway, that's kind of my little dive into for that. I mean, like I said, I don't really want to talk about the placements and the finishes too much. I mean, groups are still pretty raw as far as
and I don't think I think we're talking like the mechanics of the boxes. I think it's clear like we support groups doing well, whoever. I mean, like everyone should do well, and we're still going to have first through 15th at finals. Like every group can have a good season and have a good show, and like we'll still get ranked. So it's like everyone like good skill, whatever. Like I don't think that we're like trying to pull people down, but I do think it's like interesting to discuss how we perceive these boxes to work as they relate to each other, as groups relate to each other. Like that to me is not super clear in the way that is done. That's not really related to groups at all. That's really related to how we evaluate groups. So definitely interesting. And it's definitely, there's questions to be answered.
For sure. Well, that was kind of all I wanted to hit on for that. I was going to move away from it into something a little bit more current with what's going on in your life. You've been obviously doing a lot of video interviews, talking about design with the groups that you design for, Connexus, GMU, and Kettering, right?
Right now, I'm working with GMU and Imperial Dynasty. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then also you've been doing a lot of writing content for Flo, which I was going to bring up. It seems like every time they post something with you on it, everybody's like, oh my gosh, like this guy again. Or if they post a video of a group, there's always some troll on there like, am I going to have to pay for this content? Which is kind of funny, but also it's like, well, yeah, you are going to have to pay for it. It's worthy of the monetary value that it's bringing to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just message those people, and I'm just like, they pay me to work. It's like it's part of my job in some way, you know. Like I feel like it's part of my job, so it should be compensated. And it's not, you know, it's like fun, but it's not fun, you know. Like it's hard. So I think it's funny because like why do these random people deserve like that? You know, like
why do they get something free?
Yeah.
I mean, and I was breaking it down earlier. I was thinking, I was like, man, subscriptions are not new. Like, people have been subscribing to magazines. I mean, you subscribe to cable, internet, Netflix. I'm like, that stuff is not a new concept. Like, you pay for something in order to get content back. Like, that's the way it works.
And, dude, you know how much Andy and Jason and Chris and all those dudes work? A lot. Like, they need to get paid.
Yeah.
It's like, who do we think are, like, running these pages? It's not easy.
No, everybody works for free.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Plus, relatively speaking, like FloMarching compared to what the old system was, which was the Fan Network, RIP. Fan Network was expensive compared. I remember paying like $80 just to watch Finals Night, and that was it.
How much is a Flow subscription for a year?
A year, I think it's $150, and that gets you WGI, like multiple shows and all of finals in every class, guard, percussion, and winds. You get DCI, multiple shows throughout the summer, and then you get, I think, part of quarterfinals and then semifinals and finals because they do stream quarterfinals in the theater. And then you get BOA shows throughout the year and then BOA Grand Nationals. Plus, on top of the subscription, you get like the content of the videos that they do or the break it downs or the articles they post. I mean, it's like insane. Like $150 a month. Was it like $12 or $150 a year is like $12 a month or something?
So basically what we're saying, Flo, we're accepting sponsors.
If they want to give me a free subscription, I'd be down. But I'm just kidding.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Sorry, I think I cut out for a second.
Now we can. Yeah.
I can hear you,
Okay.
But I just went on a rant about how cheap it was pretty much.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, dude, I agree. And I think Flow, like, no, we've never had this like model before. So for people to just be reacting, you're just reacting. Like, everyone is just mad because it's easy to react. And it's like, yeah, you have to pay to get like this content. I think it makes sense, you know, and if anyone hit me up, I would talk to them. I would like explain, like, I support that, you know what I mean? And like, they have the amount of resources. I mean, they've teamed up with Ryan at Marching Arts Society. Like, they have lessons. Like, there's a lot of stuff on there.
Wait, what have they done?
like Flo and Ryan's like company, Marching Art Society, are like in a partnership. So Flo has full access to his library.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so like they're trying to grow the activity, you know, and like I don't understand, like, you know what, like drum corps is so poor, like people should have to pay to engage with it. Like, I think it's actually for the better, because it needs to be supported by the community, even from a financial standpoint, because these groups are nonprofits and it's super hard to keep them together. And it's like the second where like provided these services, and then there's like, oh, you actually have to pay to get the full thing. There's like an outrage. So I think that's silly. And
I mean, think about the setup that they're doing to go to shows. Like they're flying out a crew to set up audio and visual equipment to record all day, stream it live so that you can sit on your butt on your couch and watch it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We've never had media like this. It's the first media coverage of drum corps.
It's awesome to see the activity catching up with everything else. They've been so far behind on the social media and internet and just media side of things for this to be, frankly, media-based activity. It's music. And so things like the podcast we do, Ryan's Marching Arts Society, Flow, like this is all drum corps and WGI catching up. Now, how popular these various things get is going to vary, obviously, but it's catching up finally, and it's about time.
Yeah, you know, it's like, and also Evan Guerra's Drumline AV, he's pretty good. I like Evan, he's cool. And obviously the companies like Vic and Innovative have been on it for a little bit, but like, you know, like New York Times, you get 3 articles a month and then they charge you. So maybe something like that, or like maybe there's like an app. Like I was thinking today, a FloMarching app would be pretty cool. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't really understand people getting mad about that. It's like, that's like, that's my labor and like, that's my time. So it's like, you know, I don't see why, like, should I be sitting around like writing these like pretty long form articles? And like, you know, part of the problem is like, I don't know, like people like don't want to read long form either, but it seems like then they also demand free access to it. So I'm confused by that as well. Because I'm not sure if people are like reading through everything. I don't know.
Well, speaking of that, I guess that'll segue into, I guess, a little bit of the content, which we won't go through all of it because obviously you wrote the articles that you want people to pay to read. But, I mean, there is content in there that is valuable. You did, I think you've done like, I was counting maybe 10 or so articles at this point for them. Some of the more recent ones where you're talking about design, you've done 2 parts.
Yeah.
Talking about putting a show together. You talked about the innovation and kind of checkpoints of percussion through the ages from the inception to where it is now, and kind of some kind of checking points along the way for different groups that have trailblazed things.
Yeah.
Maybe you did the one on the judging. I thought the one on the design stuff was super insightful because you sought out and got feedback from some of the top designers in the activity. So why would people who are working with scholastic groups or maybe independent groups trying to work their way up the ladder not be interested to seeing the inside mind or kind of the insight from those people that are doing it at the highest level of the activity? It's mind blowing.
Sure. You know, like I hope, like, disclaimer, and like I feel like I try to present myself with a certain voice when I write, but like I'm not an expert by any means. Like I'm not trying to present myself as an authority, but where else does this info exist? Like, is anyone else putting this stuff down? And these are just my thoughts right now. They could change. Like, I'm not saying it's even like fixed, but I just feel like it's an opportunity to like spread information and that's like at least bouncing around my head, you know, and like things that I talk about with the people I work with and the people I'm around. But it's like, I'm not meaning to present it in a way where it's like, this is it at all, like at all. And, you know, I ended up having like longer conversations, but like talking to, you know, Ian Grom, for example, like that dude is like one of the best out there, you know, and he has an opinion very similar. It's like, I don't think he's presenting it in a way where it's like, this is the end all be all of process. It's just like, here is one process, and every group is different with how they do what they do. So it's just cool to see like honestly, the thing I like is like these guys wanted to contribute, you know, like Richard Hinshaw, who writes drill for the Cavaliers, and Avon and a lot of like top
Monarch.
groups. Like we were on and Monarch, that's right. We were on the phone for like over an hour just talking kind of shop like about really we like barely talked about the article. I had to sort of like squeeze something out of it, but we were just talking because we don't know each other, but it was like he had really interesting things to say, and we were just talking about the state of activity and blah blah. And it's like this is how the activity is going to keep moving, is like if we communicate and if we don't like put barriers up. Some people don't want to divulge their process, and like I've been wondering, like when I wrote that stuff, like am I giving something away? You know, like am I saying too much? You guys probably could tell me because you're on the outside of it, but I don't know. I wonder if it's like, am I giving secrets away that I should be withholding?
From the outside perspective, as a non-designer, or I guess just looking at it from the outside, I don't think it's too much. The first part of the article, you did the design, part 1 and part 2. The part 1, you were talking about like, where does inspiration come from? Is it from a TV show? Is it from a painting? Is it from a song that you heard? Is it from this? Is it from that? And just how people can use different things to spark a creative brainstorm in order to develop a show. I think that stuff is super valuable, and I can't remember who it was you were talking to on that part 1, but I know Tim Fairbanks has told me many times, like, oh yeah, this show came from like a painting I saw on a wall somewhere, and I think that's where Gone came from or something like that.
Right.
And then part 2, you were talking about like the design process. Like, is it the chicken or is it the egg? Do we design the music first always, and then the drill, and then the choreography? Or is it always the front ensemble and then the battery music? Or do we have a battery part that we match the front to? And just, I mean, I think we can all three say from our experience at Rhythm X, like, it's a mesh of all those. Like, sometimes Tim Jackson is like, oh, I have a battery moment, and then Andrew Markworth and Tim Fairbanks write something that fits to that. Or somebody's like, oh, I have a visual idea, and then they make something visual or musically that fits to that.
It's just the best moment should go first. You know, that's going to be what sparks the rest. And it's, I think when you're a member, you experience it in a certain way, but it doesn't necessarily match with the way that the designers are putting it out. And that is like very weird to think about from my end, is like, you experience like music, drill, body, okay, like vertical stuff. But from the back end, it could be, I mean, at Mason, we've done every order, like different moments have been cultivated in every order you could name, every permutation. So that's not necessarily a secret. It's just trying to open your mind up to different ways of doing it.
Yeah, you're not pigeonholing yourself to one process. And it's always probably going to be different, too, depending on whether you have a show that is very just abstract and broad, like a Touch, for example. I know that one really well. I mean, Touch was not about, like, a storyboard or a storyline, or it wasn't a linear concept. We start here, and this main character ends up having this development over the show and ends here. It was just, how can we express this kind of more abstract concept in a bunch of different ways?
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, I think that it is considering sort of one of the styles where it's you choose the word and you choose your term, and then you pull all the threads on it and you try to see it through in every way that you can, playing, moving, emotion. And then there's like the story one. So I think like the Uninvited by Pulse is probably my go-to, like, prototype or chronotype, whatever the word is, for like a story, but like done so artistically still, you know, not sacrificing that side of it, but very different than like Gone or Touch, which were just like sort of like a pebble with ripples. That's how I would think of those two.
That's a good way to put it. I like that analogy. No, I mean, just the whole activity to me, the design process seems to be, it's an art form, the activity itself, obviously. So it's not going to be, to me, I never have thought of the design process when I've watched people like Tim Fairbanks do it. It's always fluid, organic, and like you said, Evan, they'll have an idea and try things out. Some things won't work, some things will, and there's no real algorithm. There's no set, like, this is the best way to do this. Like, in every other art form, every artist, musician, whatever, has their own process. and the whole thing's organic. So trying to nail down, and I like the word algorithm because I'm a math person, but trying to nail down some process like that, that's like, oh, well, we have to do this, and then we design this part, and then we design this part. It's not like you're fitting puzzle pieces together. It's, well, maybe that's a bad analogy. It's not like you're following a process. Not to sound redundant, but...
Right. Yeah, I think the show is going to make the process unfold and not the process forcing the show to unfold.
Exactly.
It's as if it's going to come through the concept and the show itself, and how the show comes out in your mind and between the team or whatever. Then you'll go in and think about how to implement those things. And if you do it the reverse way, it's like you're trying to, you have like a mold, but you don't know really the rest. It's just this outline, right? This broad outline. So, but that's different than, what I originally thought about all this. I didn't really, I haven't totally thought through how it should or whatever, it's just, I think just like writing that stuff is helpful to think through some of it, I guess, for me. So that's fun. That's the fun part of it, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Speaking of the uninvited, did you see recently that that group that like ripped off that show?
Yeah.
That was
so somebody fill me in. What do you mean?
Well, Pulse created the show, obviously the uninvited, and very, very clearly some high school band saw it, and obviously Ian and John Mapes, they sell their stuff through Box 6, I believe is the right company name there.
Yeah.
But this group did not purchase the show through Box 6, but instead just use the same music, the same props, the same theme, the same like pacing. It was pretty, as blatant as you could get as far as a ripoff.
Jeez.
It was like, oh no, why would you do this?
I wonder if that's illegal.
I was getting ready to ask
I'm
that same
sure
question.
that it probably is if you sell it. I don't know.
I mean, if they have copyrights to them, if they've got copyrights and everything, could be a legal matter.
They're smart guys. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But
yeah,
that's why you have to pay for the Flow subscription, because things like that are happening, and it's like we need to support each other, even financially. This is work. And that group is not making the activity better. Whatever group is stealing intellectual property, like, it's even, you think it's good for your kids, but that's yucky.
Yeah, we'll move on from that. But you use that show, and it's very ironic that it was recently. I saw that post. But
so, do we want to move on to kind of talk about the groups themselves and the shows, their show concepts, or do you want to not hit on that?
I haven't seen a ton. Like, I haven't even seen most of these people on the floor yet. The only people that I've seen on the floor are some of the ones that I watched from the Dayton Regional. I've seen GMU show. I've seen, obviously, our show. I've seen, I don't know. That gets a little sticky in mine and Dan's realm.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say,
since we're working with groups.
I can talk about GMU show all day, but yeah, I'm won't probably weigh in too deeply with other groups, just because most of it would be speculation anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We'll ask
what I have seen, something real quick. Something I have seen. Speaking of, we've talked about flow a lot. I've seen YouTube videos of flows that are like the lot warm ups for Mystique and X at the Dayton Regional, and it's very refreshing. X's quad line is really good this year. Is that kind of the consensus? They seemed really good.
I think the whole group sounds clean.
Yeah. What is Mystique's show title? Do you guys know? Because their uniforms are throwing me for a loop.
Medium.
Right.
It's very meta show. It's very about, to me, it seems like it's about the activity, and it's a reflection on, like, an art form, kind of what we're talking about, like how to create art, and like through the medium itself. So I think it's very meta and very Mystique.
Their tarp looks pretty slick on the floor. The pink, actually, I was like, this is very visually pleasing to me.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard the show title, I hadn't seen it on the floor obviously yet, but the warm up video, I think it was the regional at Kettering High School.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I knew I recognized that band room, but I saw the uniforms and like the headphones or the sound canceling earphones. I was like, what the heck is their show? Because this
I'm
looks
sure those
really weird.
headphones have to be hollowed out. Like, there's no way they're playing with sound canceling. Like, surely.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have earbuds and they're sound canceling.
Really? I'll have to ask Dan Twyford. Like, dude, what's the secret with these?
Yeah.
Off the record.
Of course, same story. The uniform got released and everyone was like crapping on how it's purple, and then like put together, the whole package looks good.
And that's because honestly, the uniform struck me pretty drastically as odd, but I kept myself from being like, oh, this is dumb. I needed to see the entire product first, because like you said, it very well might look great on the floor with the tarp and everything.
I think it's their 20th year this year, so I would guess that they're geared up.
Yeah.
I would not sleep on them, even if they're coming out with purple. It's like these dudes know these decisions they're making are good ones, and I would, it's all about the context of the show, and and some things don't look good outside the show.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Agreed. All right, I didn't mean to derail our original roadmap, Evan, if you want to get us back on the railroad tracks.
No, that's fine. Dan said he would talk about GMU, so I did have a couple thoughts. Obviously, in your guys' show, you have one of your members who is performing vocals live, singing, rapping, a plethora of things, and it's to his own song, I believe, or some of his own songs. And I'm just kind of curious, I guess, in your guys' design process, where you're like, oh, we really like this, we should like put it in the show, or was it a little bit more organic to where you had a show concept and you were like, oh, this will also work and this would be cool?
Yeah, that we didn't design the show around him singing and rapping. We had an idea already that was based on playing to the outside audience, and using, like, if you look at our floor, the part that's actually designed is really small, like the print, and then the rest fades to black, and then it's going to fade to the black floor, and we're like have a lot of drill and moments in the black part of the floor, which is the border or a fringe. So there's like a spatial sort of element to that, and from there I was like, okay, so let's play on the edges and play to like the side audience and try to give people who are basically marginalized as audience members, like who are fringe audience members, we want to give them attention. That's where that comes from. Will judges get that? I don't know. Maybe they'll listen to this and now they'll get it. But that's why the floor is like black on the outside. And then it was like from there, we're like, okay, this idea is like really cool. It's like original, playing to the outsides. It makes sense with the word fringe. And then it was like, well, where does this take place? And it was like the city, and the whole show, I'll say this, came from the Frank Ocean song Siegfried. And then we tied that in with like the cityscape, this like destroyed sort of like, future urban sort of weird off kilter setting. And then it was like, okay, let's like do like Frank Ocean and then do like rap and sing and try to like fit that all together. So I know the Frank Ocean song, like he says like, I'd rather live outside. And that's what we're like kind of running with. We were like, okay, can we have this sung live? And then we had him record it. So I definitely think the first idea we had though was like just playing to this space that's usually not played to and addressing an audience that's usually not addressed. And that's fringe, that's fringe. So that's why the first moment of the show is like in the back corner, faced away.
Yeah. That body's pretty cool. Did you write that?
Huh?
That body's pretty cool. Did you write that?
I did. Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Yeah. That was draft, I think 3. That was the third go at it, but I'd stuck. So
it's very like hip hop, like heavy foot weighted movement. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to like tie this whole thing together, but not do like rap. Like, I don't think rap's ever been done very well. So he is going to rap at the end, and it's going to be like his original stuff that sort of like responds to the show. But we're not trying to do like too in your face rap. Like, I think it's and that's another thing that's fringe about our show, is we're using this genre of music that's really unusual. Like, a lot of people, I think Frank Ocean is super unusual. It's really like atmospheric. It's not very like rhythmic. and then just doing rap in general, like that's fringe for indoor. So that's another reason why we're like, we got to do like this weird stuff. And then we're going to pull didgeridoos out and we're going to have a didgeridoo moment because that's more fringe. That's the most fringe thing you can do, you know, like, so it's just like layers of just this idea, this word.
That's pretty sweet. It's so funny because obviously you're very involved in the design elements and aspect of like GMU, and where I work with Cap City. I probably couldn't even tell you what our show is about. Like I mean, I do have a pretty good idea. I know what it's about, but when I go to rehearsals and I teach and I'm like working with the snares and sometimes just the other battery members on the floor, my scope of vision is like so dialed in. Like I don't even notice a lot of the other things that are happening. And the other day I watched a video of one of our run-throughs and I was like, I had no clue that this was happening the whole time.
Well, then you might be doing your job well.
I was getting ready to say, you're there to do a specialized job, not design the show.
Yeah, it's just pretty funny because some people were the other day like, what's your show about? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, no, seriously. And I had to stop and pause. I was like, well, I can tell you I obviously from being around it a lot and knowing the show title and stuff like this, but as far as like the whole grand scheme, I don't know, man. I just clean the kids.
Well, dude, that's how I've been with any high school marching band I've worked with indoor drum lines I've taught with. I just teach the kids how to drum. And most of the time, I don't pay attention to show design decisions or things like that. That's not what they have me there for, and I know that's not something that's one of my strong suits. I'm just there to make them play better.
Yeah, I mean, every level is needed. You know, like it's not as if I don't know when the snare line is ticking, but I have the affordance to not care as much. Whereas like when I go to Crown, I shift into a different role where it's like battery clean, battery choreography, you know. So it's just having that mindset of being able to switch and just understanding what your role is at any time, and that you can be flexible, but know like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not supposed to be in like the dude's ear like telling him everything that's wrong because he probably knows already, because that's like that happens obviously, you know. But yeah, it's very odd to like kind of phase out of certain amount of details or in and out. Like I like the word to use, like scope. I think that's right on. I think that's important, having an awareness of scope.
Yeah, and just like your responsibility. I mean, like you said, your scope with one group that you work with is completely different than what you're called to, like almost put on tunnel vision in another aspect with another group. Like, I realize this is a problem, but that's not my job in order to make this group work efficiently. Like that's somebody else's job, and I'm going to trust that they take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, every business, there's levels, there's hierarchy, there's trickle down of information.
Synergy.
There's a synergy. There's a vertical synergistic loop-de-loo. I don't know. But yeah, I think, you know, dude, when I started teaching and like just started out, it's not like I was standing around pointing out everything that was wrong and all of a sudden I like got, you know, was being fanned with palm leaves. It's like, you're the main dude now. I teched the snares and I paid attention to what I was supposed to pay attention to. And I was like, oh, you're going to do some body. Oh, you can do whatever. It just like evolved. It was not like attempt at a movement, you know what I mean? Like a vertical movement. So that's my advice to everyone. Just do your job super well. Do whatever they're asking you to do really well.
I think that is extremely good advice for anyone in any facet of a workplace ever. Do what they want you to do really well and see where that takes you.
Yep.
Start there.
Yeah. Speaking of body, here we go. Most of this will probably be maybe what Mike and I think. You have reached out to Tommy Yago. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but It sounds right in my head. Just to touch base with him and do like a podcast with him to get some more maybe in-depth or articulate feedback on a Facebook post that he made with this month. I'll read a couple spots of this, which his original post that he made on Facebook talking about visual demand and body movement and stuff as it relates to the percussion activity, the marching percussion activities. He says, the kids are playing better than ever. I would love to see these kids be able to just shred without the mandated dance moves and bizarro postures. in parentheses. Here's me dancing on one leg. Now I'm doing a sumo poop squat in parentheses. Seriously, you have 45-pound drum on your back. Does anyone think this looks good, graceful, appropriate, or help the visual quality of a performance? Question mark. It's all the quote-unquote visual designer's idea, not the drummer's. So do the kids today like doing this? I would have said, nope, that's not what I'm here for. Why can't all the drummers actually just engage physically with their playing? Not enough, question mark. I mean, it's kind of physical already. I guess drumming just isn't visually interesting enough for the visual designers, but I think the audience might disagree, and that's kind of where it ends. Obviously, he did compliment that the activity is getting better. The kids are very talented. It's reaching peaks that it's probably never been. There's a couple things that I feel, and maybe you'll be able to get some more feedback. I know you're still trying to work out the timing as far as hooking up with him and getting it all done. I think it's just maybe if someone had come up in his time when they were doing it, like, hey, we're going to have you do this. Obviously, people would have been like, no, that's ridiculous. But to me now, like, that's just what it is. Like, it's part of the gig. Like, you sign your contract as an audition member who went to the camps or went and auditioned for these groups. Like, body is part of the gig now. And me personally, I did actually enjoy doing body. I would prefer to do body than actually march around when I was either doing WGI or DCI, especially in DCI, because the resets for the body blocks were way easier than like, hey, I want you to reset halfway across the field. So I guess that's kind of where I was like, to answer his question in that regard. Yeah, I did like doing the body. I felt cool doing it. But that's just my 2 cents.
I liked it. I feel like the years us three marched were almost the years where WGI first started to make a significant impact on DCI. Whereas so in Blue Stars in 2010, we actually did a lot of body by the standards of the activities. If you guys remember that summer, Joel Hilbert was the battery coordinator, and we had a handful of moments where we were doing a lot of body in these holds. And if I remember correctly, not a ton of other groups did that summer. But by the time, even in 2012 when I aged out, it still wasn't something that we did a ton of. Not nearly to the level that they do nowadays. Is that a fair statement? Or am I just misremembering?
I would redact that a little bit in saying that you're probably thinking of body in the percussive aspect, but like the horn lines have been doing body a little bit before that.
Correct. I'm talking about
fashion
for a drum line.
I think the 2007 Blue Devils stand out as like a really heavy choreo year, and then from there consistently, and they've actually maybe backed away a little bit. But if you think about 2008, it's when they did the crazy swinging leg stuff. And Samurai, 2008 Cavaliers was pretty heavy. But, I mean, you know what Tommy Igo points out that's super interesting is, like, the convergence of all three mediums, guard, horns, drumline. If you look at where we're headed, like, it's a combination of them together. And in WGI now, you can do them all. So, if anything, I think he's pointing out that, yeah, dance is, like, this intrinsic skill that you need to have as a drummer now, which is not usual. I mean, that is not what you would think maybe on the onset. But like Evan said, if you enter and the dance vocabulary is on day one and it's part of just coming up, you wouldn't think twice of it in the way that, you know, traditional grip or wearing heavy quads or whatever. It's just part of the gig. So I like what he said about drumming physically. And I think, like, at Crown, you know, speaking as someone who's, like, a choreographer or whatever, like, at Crown and Mason, I do rely on the way they move just in response to the score. And then it's like, oh, Steven is doing it like this. Everyone look at Steven. And then we just match. Like, I don't necessarily look at the score and go, fourth arch, plie, plie, blue. You know, it's really emerging from their performance, like their natural performance of it. And I like that better. That's just the direction I've been heading in, is a little more natural.
And that speaks to the whole organic design philosophy we were talking about before.
Yeah, I mean, if you want it to be custom to the kids, then see what they're bringing to the table, and that part of me agrees with him. You know, like musical visual drumming, I like that, and I think Mike Jackson has made that very popular with the Blue Knights and with Broken City, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And is it possible that some groups are arbitrarily saturating their shows with body that's not stylistically related to the big overarching concept? Yeah, I definitely
100%.
could agree with that. Yeah,
100% are.
So he's checking us on that, and I'm kind of on board with that. I don't disagree. And then I think it's interesting because people are just really like mad about that statement and are like, well, they're students and this is an educational activity, and it is, but we also want like to go all the way back to what we're talking about. Like we want press coverage and we want to be noticed, good or bad, and anyone like famous or any like famous organization gets scrutinized every day on the internet.
Dude, just watch ESPN.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's
and
bad.
We're not willing to let our kids get like, or even our design choices get questioned. I don't think that's good for the activity. Like censoring people's thoughts and opinions on what we're doing, no way. So I think he has good insight.
Yeah, I mean, it's welcome. I mean, people on ESPN will straight up say like, so and so played like a bum today, like he was terrible. Like just call him out, just trash him. And I don't think anything he's saying is overly out of place. I mean, thinking about me now being aged out, obviously he is way more famous and world renowned than I am, but like even as little removed from it as I am now, I'm like, I don't want to move and play. Like I don't want to do any of that. I just want to stand still and drum. Like you hold the drum and I'll play on it. Like I don't want to do this. But back, like trying to like revert and put myself back into it, I was like, yeah, man, I liked doing that stuff. So,
so did I.
Me. Yeah.
So did I, for sure. And I did march with people in like 2010 who literally said what he said in that post. I'm not here to do that. And it was not positive. Like our reaction, that was like, ew, no, like we're here to do whatever these dudes tell us to do. But that's how holistic the design is now, is that half the reason we do movement is because the guard dances. Like we're going to stand there and the guard is going to dance and it's going to look not put together. And when we can synchronize the lower bodies, it is more visually impactful. And all that is to say is we are very visual culture and we read things with our eyes. And the common fan watching the activity is more adept to look at things with their eyeballs and read it than hear the nuanced differences between the top 12 drum corps.
There is a big, I think that is very true. But also to agree with him as well, it can be a detriment in some cases where you witness group X just absolutely like vibing out and jamming and overhyping, but the quality is definitely suffering, but the audience is like just still like giving it up and cheering. And I'm like, wait, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like you got to have both. Let's not try to just reward like, oh, this group is jamming and this is like the coolest thing I've ever heard. It's like, well, the content is there, but the execution is suffering dramatically.
And if we split the drum corps community in half, and or let's not say we split in half. If we just put this to a vote, let's say, and we said, is drum corps about cleanliness or is it about entertainment? Which one do you think would win? And by drum corps community, I mean fans too. I mean everybody.
Interesting.
I would say
there would be a healthy dose of both.
I would say Clarity would win only because the majority of fans of the activity are people that did the activity, so they actually have the ears and eyes for the Clarity. Well, I'm not saying it wouldn't be close, but my gut would say that Clarity would win over entertaining, just due to the nature of the fan base.
Well, Mike, how many years is the DCI fan favorite show also the group that wins?
Rarely.
That's a valid point.
Rarely. I think Music City Drum and Bugle Corps was a fan favorite last year. They didn't even make finals.
That's a very interesting point that we have collectively brought up. And I actually think that entertainment might win. And that responds to a lot of what we're talking about and what Tommy Igo, that we are looking to be wowed and we are looking to be like shocked and awed. Like we are engaging with a lot of different like forms, and the skills it requires to engage with drum corps from an entertainment standpoint are much different and much less technical than the skills required to engage with it from a clarity standpoint. And understanding how drumline X, Y, Z, how they sound different from each other. Like at the end of the summer in August, it's like all clean, but it's not. There's gradation, right? So, but if your ears aren't trained, it doesn't matter. You're just like, who affects me the most?
Yeah.
You know, so like the performance and all that stuff is so big now. And that might be okay. Like if drum corps is too smart for the common fan, that's not a good thing. Like drum corps should be accessible if we want people to be engaging with it more, which I think we do, right? So it's just a weird question. Yeah, it makes me sound like I don't want things to be clean, which I super do.
I mean, in a perfect world, you would have both. You would be able to have that entertainment quality plus the clarity, but we don't live in a perfect world.
How many groups do, though? 2, 3 a year?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. We don't live in a perfect world.
It's mostly imperfect.
Yeah.
You know, mostly it's one or the other. So it's weird. I feel like we're back to talking about the left and right box again. Sort of subtextually.
we went full
back
circle on that.
Oh God.
On accident. Our podcast actually took like a full circle moment, like a design and a drum corps show, but we didn't intend it.
Yeah, there we go. That's good. Organic design of it. But yeah, I hope that I can get on the phone with him. I'm super excited. I'm not going to tear him down. I have no intentions of that. I don't even feel like that passionately against him. I'm interested to hear what someone who has such a large fan base and has so much influence in like the percussion world period has to say about our activity. That's what I really am interested in doing. And like after this, I'm going to try to get Travis Barker. I'm going to try to get Chad Sexton, other drum set players who have been through the activity in some regard. Like, let's get them talking. You know, I know Chad Sexton has engaged with DCI, and Travis Barker has done BYOS videos with Ralph Nader. So let's go. You know, yeah. I think that is good for us. That's healthy. Sure. We need to eat our broccoli. You know, it doesn't always taste good, but it's good for you.
It's good exposure for sure.
Yeah, man, for sure.
I think it'll be interesting. I think that'll be really interesting stuff to listen to.
So do I. I hope we can make it happen.
I'm kind of mad you got to the whole contacting Tommy Igo before we thought of it. Now, granted, your medium through FloMarching is a little more popular than our podcast right now. So,
for sure,
let's keep working on it. That's why we're doing this.
Yes, sir.
And
we're grinding it.
Yeah, it is work though. It is work. And like for example, you guys do this for free.
Yeah, so, we don't get a thing.
No, and that's, you know, I would say 90% of the activity, people in the activity like working, they don't get paid nearly what they should, like hours. You know, we all work for nothing almost. So it's all from passion, and people need to pay for the FloMarching subscription. Stop complaining.
Yeah, dude, if I were to break down what I get paid from the groups that I teach, like on a monetary basis per hour that I'm there, it would be super depressing.
It'd be illegal.
100%. Not would be, it is illegal.
It is illegal. It's a loophole that we subscribe to because we want to stay involved.
Yep.
Yeah, want to give back.
So what else you got on the roadmap, Evan? Did we cover everything?
Dude, that was all that I had. What do you got on your roadmap? You didn't bring anything.
Hey, man. I'm a busy guy. I got things to do.
Me too. Bring the personality.
I bring my loud voice. That's what I bring.
I think we covered a bunch.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we've been going for like 55 minutes, so if you want to call it here, we can close it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. My dog has to probably take a shit, so.
All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Just a quick update. We are still planning on applying to get on iTunes. The reason, kind of funnily, or ironically funnily, that's not really a word.
That is not a word.
Whatever. The reason we have not done it yet is our logo we use for the podcast is not a high enough resolution to apply for iTunes. So we are currently looking to contact a graphic artist to see if they can put something together for us real quick. If you know anyone, comment on the video, help us get connected with them, and we'll try and continue trying to get this going. So,
and in line for what we're preaching, we will pay for their service because they are providing us a service.
Correct. So help us out. That's all I got. You guys?
That's all I got. I'm good, man.
All right.
Sweet.
You got to say peace, Evan.
Peace.
Please.
Perfect.